So I want to start off with a little experiment. Um, I want everybody to close your eyes and bring your hand palm up in front of you, sort of at the level of your chest. Open palm. And I want you to imagine that you're holding a feather. And in your palm is this little feather, very delicate. You can visualize it if you want, the colors, the texture of it, how the little different pieces of it might flutter in the wind. You'll notice that it's just sitting there. Now I want you to imagine I told you, do not let that feather move out of your hand. Do whatever you have to do to make sure that feather does not fall out of your hand. You can't make a mistake. It has to stay there. And I want you to notice in your body how that commandment makes you feel, what your inclination is with your relationship to the feather, what emotions might come up for you in your body. Maybe thoughts. Now I want you to imagine, I said to you again, look at that feather in your hand. And don't worry about it. If a gust of wind comes along and blows it out of your hand, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Just let it be there. Just be with it. Feel it on your palm. And notice if the feelings in your body are different. If the thoughts might be different. If your inclination to be with that feather is different. Okay, you can open your eyes. When we're meditating, there's really no goal. There's no place we're getting to. There's no endpoint. So striving in meditation is really unnecessary because we're not trying to get anywhere. We're not working toward anything. This is a very different way of being in the world than what we're used to being. It's a different way than we're used to being told to be in the world. In fact, we're not normally told to be in the world. We're usually told to do in the world, right? So it can be very off-putting in the beginning when we start meditating because we feel like we're not doing anything or we're doing something wrong because we can't stop thinking. The thoughts keep coming. The feelings keep coming. The anxiety won't calm down. The restlessness won't stop. And we feel like, well, we just want to give up because we're not doing it right. I can't do this. Everybody can meditate. But we often have this misconception that is about attaining something, attaining enlightenment, attaining an empty mind. But meditation is not about attainment. It's about be. Non-striving is one of the pillars of mindfulness. Jon Kabat-Zinn has listed out 7, sometimes people say 9, but basically 7 core pillars of mindfulness, non-striving being one of them. And it's really a foreign concept to us in a lot of ways as adults. As kids, we're great at it until the adults beat it out of us, right? We can all remember, I'm sure, times in our childhood where we would just kind of be meandering through, an afternoon, especially if you're maybe my age or older, because we were more free range before devices, right? and we were kicked out of the house and expected to go and just get out. So as kids, we have more opportunities typically to be in a state of being, in a state where we are just open and floating and observing and being curious and playful. And a lot of that goes away as we become adults, either because, um, the adults in our lives have pushed it out of us. School certainly pushes it out of us. And then we get into jobs that definitely don't allow for any of that, typically. And as we grow up and we go through education system, right? And I'm talking about it. I'm not meaning to sound like that's a blaming thing, but it's very obvious in this sense. So I'm using this example. We see, especially maybe around third grade, it starts to become about tests and learning in a very systematic way that is all cognitive and removes any of the intuitive physical experience of learning. So we're only really allowed to learn in a certain way. And that way is all about striving, is all about accomplishment, it's all about hard work. All of those really like solid hard words that we use. We can even feel it in our body when we're in a state of really pushing hard into something. It feels in our body like we're pushing hard into something. Sometimes we can feel like we're tripping over things, like physically, actually. We're trying to move so fast in our day and we're trying to get to that place right now without being in the moment, in the process of being there, that we can even physically begin to trip over ourselves, hit our hands on things, become clumsy. So all the messages we receive in our world, in our society, in our life is all about accomplishment. It's all about striving. So when we come into meditation and we want to just sit and be, especially in the beginning, it can be really difficult for us to switch our modes of being, if you will, to a non-striving, just an open way of being. Another sort of analogy I like to use for this is floating in a body of water. If you are in the ocean and the waves are coming in, and I mean gentle waves, not like crazy tsunami waves, right? We don't want to be in that ocean, but gentle waves are coming in. And if we are standing and we're walking into it and we're pushing against it, we're feeling the impact of it, right? It's pushing us over, it's knocking us over time and again. We lose our footing, we lose our balance, we turn away from it even. But if we're floating on the top of the water, we're riding the waves, right? We're feeling the movement of the waves. Our body isn't tense, it's loose and relaxed. We're open, we're experiencing what it's like to be the movement of the wave rather than trying to make ourselves solid against it. And the same thing with the idea of imagining the feather in your palm. A feather, especially if it's a downy kind of feather, the slightest little breeze will come along and blow it out. And if we are really set, really attached to making sure that that feather doesn't go anywhere, it creates an anxiety in us, right? It creates a grasping. We almost want to, make a fist and hold it, but that'll just crush it. So when we allow ourselves to just be with it and allow whatever happens to the feather to happen to the feather, it releases the anxiety. It releases our attachment to the outcome and allows us to be with whatever experience happens right now in this moment. So this is really the gift of non-striving. And all of the pillars of mindfulness are all sort of tied together. They kind of all overlap. We have letting go is also part of non-striving, right? Because you can't hold on to something and non-strive, right? It's like the two things go hand in hand. So when we come into meditation and we begin to sit and we notice when our body is tense. We notice when we are believing that we can't do it because we can't stop thinking. These are all beautiful insights that we learn about ourselves that we might not have learned before. And then we can keep going with that, right? We don't want to ask ourselves on the cushion why in an analytical way, because we don't want to live in our brain when we're meditating. We want to be in our bodies. But often the why, the answer to the why, comes naturally, intuitively. Oh, well, I notice that I'm in this state. I feel this in my body a lot. When I'm working, when I'm driving, when I'm having this conflict, I notice I'm tensing like this a lot. I'm in this state of being all the time. I'm in this state of being. It's not who I am, right? So we're able to detach our identities from that state of being. I am an anxious person. I'm just in a state of anxiety a lot. There's a very big difference. We can't change the state of being that we're in if we're identified with it. If that is our identity, we've constructed a whole identity around it. We can't change that. We can't make any changes around it. But if we change the way we talk about it, I am feeling anxious, or I'm in a state of anxiety in this moment. It's in a place of being. It's not an identity. So real freedom can come from that. It takes practice to get to the point where you can open to non-striving, and more practice still to get to the point where you're comfortable letting the striving go a little bit, because we're not used to being in that place. We're not used to it feeling safe because we've always been told that we need to be, working hard, striving hard, doing something, producing. We're only valuable so much as what we produce, basically, right? So it will not feel natural often when we begin. It will often sometimes we'll feel some judgment come up around it, or some negativity, some way that our little small self, our little ego, is trying to get us to stop doing it, because that's going to make the ego be less important in our lives. And the ego wants to be big, wants to rule everything. But just like thoughts, the mind, right? The mind should be a servant, not the master in our lives. So thoughts happen even when we're sitting down and we're meditating, we're grounding in our bodies, the thoughts will come. Because our brain is designed to think. That's what it's supposed to do. Just like our heart is designed to beat, right? Our lungs are designed to breathe. Our mind, our brain is designed to think. So when we sit down and the thoughts come, and they will come, instead of really focusing on the fact that, oh, I'm thinking, or I'm in this thought, or she said that, or I should have said that, whatever, right? We're living up here. We have absolutely no idea what's going on down here. So we just pause for a moment and we notice that it's happening. We just say, oh, look, I'm thinking. No big deal. Let it go. And then we come back to the body. So we use the body, the physical sensations within the body, as the thing that anchors us in the present moment. The body has no choice but to be in the present moment. The mind can be all over the place, and that's why it's a dangerous master. But when we allow ourselves to be really in touch with our bodies and anchored into some physical sensation within the body, we always have some kind of little home that we can come back to bring us back into the present moment, to allow us to be fully here, fully now. And bonus, we're reconnecting our mind-body connection, which we're also very disconnected from usually. So mindfulness, there's no goal. Meditation, there's no goal. There are different types of meditations that offer different lessons, insights, ways of being, but there's no goal in the way that we think of goal as a place to get to, as a place to work toward, as a place to strive to. And if you start to notice that striving, that propensity toward uh, working and accomplishment in your body, you can just note it. Oh, okay, when I feel like this, I'm attaching it to the label of working or accomplish, right? Because all the sensations, all the feelings that we have in our body, we attach to a word that forms the concept, right? But we can start to notice that and start to tease them apart and say, oh, well, it's not accomplishment. It's just this feeling. And what is this feeling like? Oh, this feeling feels like there's momentum in it. It feels a little hard. It feels like it creates some restlessness in me because I feel like I should be doing something instead of just sitting here. So we start to really be able to get into the the ideas underneath whatever the label is. And we can start to create some space to separate that stuff out, to eventually separate our identity from it. So we can eventually perhaps change the way we relate to those things. And that's where real change in our outer life can be the fruit from the meditation. So really, really, really beautiful. So let's go ahead and have a sit. And so with seated meditation, it's really important to be in a place of ease, but not extreme comfort, because we want to make sure that we, for mindfulness meditation in particular, are able to maintain an alertness of our awareness. So if we are too relaxed, sometimes it can encourage us to fall asleep. If you find yourself falling asleep, it's no big deal. Sometimes uh, keeping your eyes open a little bit in front of you can help to solve that issue. Um, it's helpful to have a cushion underneath you if you're feeling any straining in your legs or in your hip flexors, if you have any straining around your midsection, if you're not used to sitting on the floor, because it lifts your hips up and takes some of that strain off. You are also, of course, welcome to support your back. Just be mindful that you don't become too relaxed into it. So still maintaining a little bit of uprightness in your back. So back should be straight. You don't want any tensing or straining, again, in the midsection. Okay. So I'll invite you to close your eyes, or if you prefer, you can have your eyes open with a soft gaze a couple of feet in front of you. We'll begin by taking in 3 deep inhales and exhales at your own pace. And then just allow your breath to come into its natural rhythm. Whatever that may be. Allowing it to rise and fall in your body as it will, without controlling it, without forcing it to be any way. Just begin to come into your body, noticing what it's like to be in this body, in this moment. Now I invite you to gently bring your awareness to the top of your head, allowing yourself to just notice the sensations in the top of the head. You might notice the temperature of the room, the feeling of your hair. You may not notice quite anything just yet, and that's okay too. Just bring a gentle awareness to this area. And notice as you direct your awareness here, if you sense any tensing in your body, any sense of really trying to see it. And if so, just let that loosen a bit. And gently, we're going to begin to scan our awareness down our bodies, starting at the top of the head and bringing the awareness down over the face, over the eyebrows to the eyes, pausing a moment at the eyes to notice if you might have any subtle holding in the muscles around the eyes, any little bit of tension. And if so, just let that go. Continuing down over the nose and cheeks, into the mouth and the jaw. Pausing once again at the jaw, a place we often hold a lot of tension. Just noticing if you are clenching or even subtly tensing the muscles around the jaw. Sometimes angling the head down a little bit more can allow you to more easily release those muscles. Or pushing your tongue up into the top of the roof of your mouth. And gradually scanning down from the jaw, over the neck and throat, to the tops of the shoulders. Once again, pausing to notice if you're holding any tension here as well. Another place we tend to hold a lot of our stress. Just letting it loosen and relax. Continuing from the shoulders into the torso, over the chest and upper back, the stomach and lower back, into the hips, pausing a moment to notice the feeling of sitting on the cushion. And continuing down the thighs, into the knees, over the shins, over the shins and calves, into the ankles, And finally, into the feet, allowing the awareness to rest here in the sensations around the feet. Allowing all of the parts of your body to be loose and relaxed while holding the awareness at the feet. Allowing yourself to really know the experience the feet are having right now. The way it feels for them to be touching the cushion. The way it feels for them to have the legs crossed on top of them if you're cross-legged. Noticing the temperature. Any qualities that may exist in this moment in the feet. You may notice from time to time that thoughts appear. And when that happens, just know it's normal, it's common, it happens to everybody. Just notice that they've arisen. Perhaps attach a neutral label to them, something like thinking, thinking. Allow them to just go on their way as you gently guide your awareness back to the sensations in your feet. If you begin to notice any achiness or tingling in the feet or the legs, just see if you can allow those sensations to be present as well without moving, and allowing them to be part of the present experience. As you're holding the awareness in the feet, you may also experience the emergence of emotions or beliefs. And as with the thoughts, just recognize that they're there. Give them a neutral label. Allow them to move on. Or include them in the awareness without judging, without being pulled into the story, without creating any beliefs around who you are. And then gently resettle your awareness in the feet. Just allowing ourselves to be fully present with the experience in the body in this very moment, right now. In the final moments of this meditation, I invite you, if it feels right for you, to place your hand on your chest over your heart and offer yourself gratitude. Gratitude for making time in your day to offer yourself the gift of just being, making space for just you, knowing that giving to yourself is just as important as giving to others. I'll close out the meditation with this poem by Mary Oliver called Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I'll tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies, and the deep trees, the mountains, and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clear blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. And when you're ready, you're welcome to open your eyes, come back into the room.